in every interaction that you have with your client, with your prospect, um, you you know, there's no reason you can't offer some kind of lead magnet, whether it's big or small.
Welcome back to Digital Dominance. We've talked on earlier episodes about how important the messaging is when putting together your business website. You need to spend time really getting inside the head of your target audience, and only then can you start writing copy that resonates. But what about when you're selling a service that requires more persuasion? What if you want to capture the contact information of a prospect before they're ready to schedule a call? Well, that's where lead magnets come in. You put together a free resource that promises so much value that the prospect can't help but give you their email address in exchange for it. Writing a high quality lead magnet that provides value and demonstrates your authority can feel daunting. What content would be interesting or compelling enough? Where do you start? And what about other collateral? So, to help me with this topic today, I've invited Jeff Craven onto the show. Jeff Craven is a certified StoryBrand guide that specializes in working with consultants. He has been helping his clients communicate their value for over 10 years, and he's great at helping people find their angle and turn it into messaging and collateral that makes decision makers sit up and listen. So, welcome to the show, Jeff. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jeff. It's good to be here.
Definitely. For those who don't know, StoryBrand was a popular book written by Donald Miller, but it's more than a book title. It's actually a framework to help people write more compelling copy. Can you share a little bit more about what it takes to be certified?
Sure. What you do is you will, go and join a specific program. It's a program that you can join, and you go through a certain amount of training, and they make sure that you understand the framework, you understand the thinking behind it, the why behind it, and then they also make sure that you understand how to apply it. And once you've demonstrated that, then you can be certified.
And that makes sense. And this is a framework that has kind of stood the test of time at this point because so many people have used it. It's proven effective, and it's something that comes up now and then when we're talking about copywriting. We've talked about messaging before on the show. We've highlighted how important it is to know your audience and speak in a way that will resonate with them. But today, I really wanted to focus on the collateral and the lead magnets that support your marketing efforts because that's often a piece that owners forget about and just leave out entirely.
Yeah, and it can be a daunting exercise for people because it's like what do I write about? What do I what do I say? How do I put it out there? How long should it be? All those things can be pretty daunting and actually keep people from actually doing it.
Right. And just to make a distinction, when I say collateral, I'm thinking of the flyers and info sheets and white papers that you bring with you to a prospect meeting or a trade show. You leave that stuff with people for them to review after you've gone. Whereas the lead magnet is something that you're offering usually on your website to get someone to give you their email address in exchange for that thing. It could still be a white paper depending on what you're offering, but it has to be something that is clearly valuable to the visitor, right?
Right, absolutely. And in order to create something that's going to be compelling, you have to be very well versed in what their actual problems are, and understand how to articulate that problem back to them in a way that they are, like, wow, are you reading my diary? Do you know? Are you following me around? So that you can know, hey, I know where you're at right now, and I know this is going to help you right away. It's going to solve an immediate pain for you. And that pain could be, hey, I'm confused about how to approach this problem, or I don't really have clarity on what next direction I should take. There are lots of different ways that you can help your prospect right there in their journey.
So, writing a white paper or guide is a little bit different than writing the direct marketing or sales copy. So, how do you approach that collateral to make sure you're providing value along the way? I mean, you kind of touched on it, but how do you make sure it doesn't feel like one big pitch?
Yeah, that's a great question. It has to be, like I said, before, it has to be immediately relevant to their pain. It has to line up with the promise that you're making to them. So let me give you an example of a client that I worked with, who they're consultants. They work with medical practices, independent medical practices, and these doctors that start these independent medical practices, they get overwhelmed with how much business they have, business problems they have to face and they have to solve, which takes away time from their patients. So the understanding that and really getting into that, and understanding where that pain comes from, how they experience that pain, what's behind that problem that they're having, really helped us narrow down. Hey, here are the 5 business problems that are keeping you from your patients. They're taking time away from your patients, and here's how you can approach them, how you can solve them. And that helped. That helped on 2 levels. One, it helped the prospect understand, hey, do I actually have a problem? Like help them diagnose. Oh yeah, I do have that problem. That is something that's coming up. And then also, of course, gives them direction on how they might address it and solve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what do you say to the people though who get nervous about giving away their secrets? Right? They don't want to put too much in there. I mean, you got to give them something, but how do you walk that line?
Yeah, that's a very common fear, and I usually answer that objection to my clients with David Ogilvy. I don't know if you're familiar with David Ogilvy, very famous advertising um, guru, and back in the '60s, and he made his name by giving away all of his secrets. He wrote Confessions of an Advertising Man, and he didn't hold back. He just gave everything away, and that just launched him. He became, the go-to person for advertising. So I always tell my clients, I mean, don't worry about that, because the reason people are coming to you, the reason people would come to you is not because they don't know something, is they don't know how, or they don't have the time, or they don't they know their time is better spent elsewhere. And in fact, that's the people you want to hire you, right? Those are the people that know that time is money, and their time is more important to them than their money.
So, what is the difference when you're writing, a white paper or something in terms of the call to action? On a website, we talk about that a lot more. Is it better to be more understated when it comes to a guide or a white paper on physical collateral you're handing to someone, or do you let the content itself drive the next steps, or what does that look like?
So let me just clarify, are you saying the call to action within the actual content, within the lead magnet, for example?
Yeah, within I'm talking specifically about like a physical white paper you take to a trade show. At the bottom, do you do the same thing that you do on the website and say, interested in learning more? Call this number to set up your appointment. Or do you just, because some companies just have it more professional, they just leave the block of contact info at the bottom without a clear call to action. So, is there any guideline on that to make it effective and not feeling pushy?
Yeah, it's going to depend a lot on what the buyer's journey that you've identified. So if they're early on in their buyer's journey, they are really just trying to educate themselves, right? And they may not even know that they may see the kind of the fringes of a problem, but they may not understand exactly what it is. So I'll give you another example. So I was working with this other consulting firm. They do team performance improvement, and a lot of their clients, their prospective clients, weren't aware. They thought, oh, we haven't. What they can see is organizational problems. Like we're not fast enough. We aren't innovating. We aren't. We're losing the talent that we don't want to lose. And they would think, oh, we've got a technology problem, or um, we've got a morale problem. We've got, all it's a cultural thing or whatever it is, and not identify the connections between their organizational problems and how their team performance could help with that. So we put together um, a lead magnet that had that called out, "Hey, here are the 4 secrets that high performance organizations know about teams." Right. So we identified something that the prospect wants, and then we connected it to teams, because we knew that a lot of their prospects hadn't made that connection yet. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, that makes sense. And I think it makes me wonder, is there ever a time when you wouldn't want a lead magnet? Because it obviously seems like a great way to draw people in and get them into your ecosystem. But are there times when you don't need one? Maybe for a simple widget that you're selling?
I don't know that there's ever a time you wouldn't want one. And when you say when I say lead magnet, a lot of people that immediately comes to mind, is that PDF download, that the white paper, or the case study, whatever it might be. But there are all kinds of lead magnets that you can produce. You can produce video. You can give them, hey, here's an email course, or here's a template that you can use to solve this or that problem. Even I've seen people use just Excel spreadsheets with macros already put into them, to help people figure out a specific problem that's related to the ones they can solve. So yeah, I think there's always, in every interaction that you have with your client, with your prospect, um, you there's no reason you can't offer some kind of lead magnet, whether it's big or small, to help, not only help them, but to give you an indication of where their interests lie.
Right, and that makes sense. Um, I have seen a lot of creative lead magnets because, like you mentioned, templates. It could be for specific programs too. It's an editing template for a particular program, or PowerPoint, background templates, or whatever it is. Yeah, you're right. Any of those things can provide value to that particular audience, and if you know what they want and need, then you can pick something specific to them. But a lead magnet is really just the first step, though, in your relationship with that person, because obviously they're not ready to buy just yet. They're still in that learning or exploring mode. So it's almost just as important, if not more important, what comes next, with the follow up, the email sequences. Can you talk about that a little bit to kind of connect those, and, where do you go from there?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I think what you're talking about the email sequence, or whatever follow up you're going to use, because you want people to begin to know, like, and trust you. Right? It's something that, speaking of story brand, something that Donald Miller refers to is the speed of relationship. And everybody moves at different speeds in terms of their relationship, their willingness to trust you. So you need to respect that. And so with your lead magnet, um, whatever they download is going to give you an indication, like I said before, an indication of where their interests lie. And so you're going to, whatever that lead magnet, whatever problem that is promising to solve, then you're just going to give them more, um, in terms of, let's just say it's an email sequence. You're going to give them more ways to solve their problem. You're going to call out different, whether that's going to be, hey, here's a different way to think about this. Hey, here's a great exercise to use with your team. Here's 5 things that a lot of people miss, and how to know if you're, um, how to know if you have this specific problem, or this, if you're missing this, all kinds of ways that you can approach this, and sort of build off of that problem that they're interested in solving.
Like you mentioned, you can't just jump from, okay, here's some value, and then your first email says, all right, you ready to buy my $10,000 coaching program? I know you got to kind of build up to that. Think of it more of a relationship where you got to, walk before you run, and
Right.
still provide more value along the way. But you can do that in a way where you're leading people towards that end goal while helping them, right? Because if they feel like you're just being pushy, you're trying to get something from them, that's a good way to chase them away.
Yeah. Something I advise my clients to do is to separate their lead magnets into 2 buckets. The first one I call the warm lead generator. That's the one that you might offer on your website, knowing that most often, a lot of the people that are becoming there are just, they're looking for information. They know that they have a problem. They are researching solutions, right? So let's say they download that, and within that, warm lead generator, within the sequence that you send out after that, you give an offer for what I call a hot lead generator. Maybe it's a more aggressive, um, way for them to solve their problem. So I'll give you another example. There was another consultancy I was working with, and they had the warm lead generator, and it went over their philosophy of how they solve that problem, right? And what and why they do it that way, and the benefits in doing that way. And then within that sequence, we offered an assessment, right? It was an online assessment, took about 10 minutes. Hey, if you want to know, if you want to solve this problem, and you want to make the best use of your money, the best use of your time and your resources to get the biggest bang for your buck, take this assessment and it'll tell you where your biggest opportunities lie. And so that helped that buyer's journey to where people could go from go from, hey, I'm interested in the solutions, I'm researching them right now, to, hey, I'm actively looking to solve this. I think I'm getting closer to wanting to solve this. And then if they took that assessment, that would trigger an email from one of their SDRs, who would then reach out and say, "Hey, I see that you are interested in this, in solving this issue in this area of your organization. We have lots of resources for that. What can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on? And I can send you more tailored resources." And that would start a conversation.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And for those listening, SDR is a sales development rep, and that's the person who's just going to do the follow up. But y- I like this because you're acting as a guide, right? So you've taken the warm person and you're guiding them to the next step, right, with that assessment, and it's still providing additional value and is giving you more information about what they want or need. So that's a great way to move people along. Um, yeah, and it doesn't feel pushy because you're helping them, right? It's something they wanted anyways.
Yeah, the way that I like to think about this, and I advise people that I work with to think about this is as a conversation, right? This is a way to have a conversation with them on their terms, and it's a much different approach than hey, just buy my stuff, right? um, there is a time for that, and you're always going to, at every interaction, you're always going to invite them to take the next step. um, One of the analogies that I've heard is, if a sale is like a marriage, then marketing is like dating. It's like you're giving them, if you could keep asking. Let's say you go out with someone for a little while and you ask them to marry you, and they say no. They say, "Oh, well, you want to go on another date?" Sure. So you want to give them the option to marry you, right? But if they say no, you also want to give them an option to go on another date.
Right, you don't end the relationship right there necessarily,
Right.
you're just opening that door
Right.
while staying on the path with them
Yep.
until they're ready.
Yep.
So, what are some things that I haven't asked you yet about this process and lead magnets?
Yeah. So the lead magnet is a result. Coming up with an effective lead magnet is a result of some deeper work that is the I do more of this kind of deeper work than anything else. It's a product of understanding understanding your message on a level that is very clear to you, that you're very confident in presenting it. And it comes from it's lined up with values that you hold, and the kind of the world that you want to see. So I always counsel my clients, say, okay, well, what wrong in the world are you out to right? What do you make right in the world, or what kind of world do you want to see? And this is independent of who they sell to, or um, what their capabilities are, what their framework is, whatever that is. It comes from them and why they started the company in the first place. And it doesn't have to be a big world changing wrong they want to right, but that is a really fundamental part of making a message, what I consider making a message beautiful. And a message that's beautiful is one that is clear and it connects and it creates a relationship. So that's a all the stuff that comes out of it, the web copy, the lead magnet, the sequences we're talking about, all of that comes out. The reason it's beautiful, the reason it actually delivers value is because you've done that deep work before to understand, hey, this is why I'm doing this, and this is how it connects and flows through and makes sense with everything I'm saying about myself and how I'm going to help my prospect.
Right. Because this, you can't skip over that step. I think a lot of people want to get right to the end result of a better copy or get my lead magnet out there. And this is also why ChatGPT isn't going to be as good as, someone actually doing this work, figuring everything out, and then having their special opinion and, perspective on the world that is speaking through all the content that they're writing. So that's a great reminder. And I think with that, we'll kind of uh, start wrapping up here. So I did want to say thanks for your time today, Jeff. You've done a great job breaking down how to make these, effective lead magnets and business collateral, and making sure that you're approaching it with the right mentality and providing value that guides people along the buyer's path instead of just, jamming stuff down their throat. So, guys, if you want to connect with Jeff, you can find him on LinkedIn or through his website at thoughtcraft.co. Do you have any final thoughts for us, Jeff?
I just go out there and make beautiful messages, connect with people, make connections, build relationships with your message.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here, Jeff. And thanks to everyone listening. Go work on your lead magnets, and I'll see you in the next episode.